I want to start today with a question, and I want you to think about it honestly. How many mornings have you woken up and your very first thought, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else, has been about your blood sugar? Whether it is going to be high today, whether what you ate last night is going to show up in that number, whether you are doing enough to keep it under control. For millions of adults over 60, that quiet morning worry about blood sugar is as familiar as the alarm clock. And if that is you, I want to share something today that is not a miracle, that is not a cure, but that is genuinely backed by research, genuinely simple, and genuinely something that many of my patients over 60 have added to their morning routine with real and measurable results on their blood sugar. I am Dr. Daniel Chen, and today I want to talk about one specific addition to your morning water that research has shown can meaningfully support blood sugar regulation after 60. And I also want to explain why it works, because I never want to just tell you what to do without telling you why. Because when you understand why, you are far more likely to do it consistently. And consistency is what produces results. So let us start with what is actually happening to blood sugar regulation after 60. Because this is the context that makes everything else make sense. In a healthy younger adult, blood sugar regulation is a remarkably efficient process. You eat a meal, carbohydrates are broken down into glucose. Glucose enters the bloodstream. Blood sugar rises. The pancreas detects the rise and releases insulin. Insulin acts like a key, unlocking the doors of muscle cells, fat cells, and liver cells, allowing glucose to enter, and blood sugar falls back to the normal range. Within about 2 hours, clean, efficient, automatic. But after 60, this process becomes less precise, less efficient, and more prone to disruption for 3 specific reasons that every older adult needs to understand. The first reason is insulin resistance. After 60, the cells of the body, particularly muscle cells, become progressively less responsive to the insulin signal. The key still fits the lock, but the lock has become stiff, harder to turn. The cell does not open as readily as it once did. In response to the same amount of insulin, the pancreas compensates by producing more insulin to achieve the same effect. But over time, this compensation becomes insufficient. Blood sugar takes longer to come down after meals. Post-meal blood sugar spikes are higher and stay elevated for longer than they should. The second reason is reduced first-phase insulin secretion. In a young, healthy adult, the pancreas responds to a rising blood sugar in 2 phases. The first phase is a rapid burst of insulin released within the first few minutes of blood sugar beginning to rise. This first phase response blunts the peak of the blood sugar rise before it has a chance to climb too high. After 60, particularly in people with prediabetes or early type 2 diabetes, this first phase insulin response becomes slower and smaller. The initial rapid burst is reduced and blood sugar is allowed to climb higher in those first critical minutes after a meal before insulin catches up. This is why post-meal blood sugar spikes are one of the most common and most concerning blood sugar patterns in adults over 60. Even in those whose fasting blood sugar appears relatively normal. The third reason is reduced incretin effect. Incretins are hormones released from the gut when food is consumed. They amplify the insulin response and slow the emptying of the stomach, giving the body more time to process incoming glucose. After 60, the incretin effect diminishes. The gut hormones are less abundant, less responsive, and their amplifying effect on insulin secretion is reduced. Together, these three changes create a blood sugar regulatory system after 60 that is less responsive, less precise, and more prone to the high spikes and slow recovery that over time contribute to the progression from normal blood sugar to prediabetes, and from prediabetes to type 2 diabetes. Now let me tell you about what I want you to add to your morning water and why it works. The ingredient I am talking about is cinnamon, specifically Ceylon cinnamon, also called true cinnamon. 1 level teaspoon stirred into a glass of warm water every morning before breakfast. Now, before you dismiss this as too simple or too familiar, I want to walk you through what the research actually shows about cinnamon and blood sugar, because the evidence is more substantial than most people realize. The first and most studied mechanism by which cinnamon supports blood sugar is through improving insulin sensitivity. Cinnamon contains compounds, particularly a substance called cinnamaldehyde, that have been shown in cell and animal studies and in human clinical trials to activate insulin receptor signaling in muscle cells, essentially making those stiff locks more responsive to the insulin key. A 2003 study published in Diabetes Care, one of the most respected diabetes research journals, found that daily cinnamon consumption of between 1 and 6 grams per day reduced fasting blood glucose by 18 to 29% in patients with type 2 diabetes over 40 days. A 2013 meta-analysis published in the Annals of Family Medicine, which pooled the results of 10 randomized controlled trials, found that cinnamon supplementation was associated with significant reductions in fasting blood glucose, fasting insulin, total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, and triglycerides. And a 2019 review in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics concluded that cinnamon supplementation had a significant glucose-lowering effect, particularly in people with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. The second mechanism is slowing gastric emptying. Cinnamon slows the rate at which food leaves the stomach and enters the small intestine. This slowing of gastric emptying reduces the speed at which glucose enters the bloodstream after a meal, reducing the height of the post-meal blood sugar spike, and extending the time over which glucose is absorbed, allowing the body more time to manage it without a dramatic spike. This mechanism is particularly relevant for the post-meal blood sugar spikes that are so common after 60 and that are such an important driver of long-term blood sugar deterioration. The third mechanism is mimicking insulin activity directly. Certain compounds in cinnamon, including type A polymers, have been shown in research to directly stimulate glucose uptake into cells in a way that mirrors the action of insulin itself. This insulin mimicking activity is independent of the insulin sensitivity improvement, meaning cinnamon is working through more than one pathway simultaneously to support blood sugar regulation. The fourth mechanism is inhibiting digestive enzymes that break down carbohydrates. Cinnamon has been shown to inhibit certain enzymes in the digestive system, including alpha-glucosidase and alpha-amylase, that are responsible for breaking down complex carbohydrates into glucose. When these enzymes are inhibited, the breakdown of carbohydrates and therefore the release of glucose into the bloodstream is slower, more gradual, and more manageable by the blood sugar regulatory system. This is actually the same mechanism used by a class of diabetes medications called alpha-glucosidase inhibitors, including acarbose, that slow carbohydrate digestion to reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes. Cinnamon achieves a milder version of the same effect naturally. Now, I want to be completely honest about the limitations of the research, because honesty is more important to me than making something sound more powerful than it is. The studies on cinnamon and blood sugar are not all consistent. Some trials have shown significant benefits, others have shown modest or no benefit. The variation in results likely reflects differences in the type of cinnamon used, the dose, the duration, the population studied, and the baseline blood sugar levels of the participants. Cinnamon is not a replacement for diabetes medication. If you are on metformin or insulin or any other prescribed diabetes treatment, please do not reduce or stop those medications based on adding cinnamon to your water. That is not what this is about. What cinnamon can be for adults over 60 with prediabetes or mildly elevated blood sugar, or who are working to prevent the progression from normal to pre-diabetic blood sugar, is a genuinely useful, evidence-informed, low-risk daily addition to a blood sugar management approach that also includes physical activity, appropriate diet, and regular monitoring. It is one tool among several, and a useful one when used consistently and with realistic expectations. Now, let me also explain why I specifically recommend Ceylon cinnamon rather than the more common cassia cinnamon that most people have in their kitchen cupboard. There are two main types of cinnamon available commercially: Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes called true cinnamon or Sri Lankan cinnamon, and cassia cinnamon, which is the most widely available and cheapest form found in most supermarkets. Both types contain cinnamaldehyde, and both have blood sugar supporting properties. But cassia cinnamon contains significantly higher levels of a compound called coumarin, which in large amounts can be toxic to the liver and kidneys, particularly in older adults who may already have reduced liver and kidney capacity. Ceylon cinnamon contains much lower levels of coumarin, making it significantly safer for daily consumption. At the amounts used in blood sugar research, Ceylon cinnamon is available in most health food stores and online, and is clearly labeled as Ceylon cinnamon or true cinnamon. If your cinnamon is simply labeled cinnamon without further specification, it is almost certainly cassia. And for occasional cooking use, that is fine. But for a daily blood sugar supporting routine, Ceylon cinnamon is the safer choice and the one I recommend. Now, let me also tell you how to prepare it for maximum effectiveness and palatability. Take 1 level teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon powder. Add it to a glass of warm water, not boiling water, warm water. Stir well and drink it before breakfast, before your first meal of the day. Taking it before eating is important because the enzyme inhibiting and gastric emptying slowing effects are most beneficial when the cinnamon is in your digestive system before carbohydrate digestion begins. Some people add a small amount of raw honey to improve the taste. If the flavor of plain cinnamon water is too strong, a small amount of raw honey, about half a teaspoon, does not significantly affect blood sugar at that quantity and may add its own modest antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory benefits. Others add a small squeeze of lemon juice, which also has mild blood sugar supporting properties through its effect on gastric emptying and its polyphenol content. Whatever makes the preparation something you enjoy enough to do every single morning is the right preparation for you. Because consistency over weeks and months is what the research shows, produces meaningful results, not a single glass or an occasional dose. Now, let me also talk about 5 other morning habits that work alongside the cinnamon water and that together create a morning blood sugar foundation that is genuinely powerful after 60. The first morning habit is a short walk within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, even 10 minutes of gentle walking. First thing in the morning activates muscle glucose uptake through an insulin-independent pathway, meaning the muscles take up glucose even without insulin signaling simply because they are contracting. This morning walk helps bring down any overnight blood sugar elevation and primes the muscle cells for better glucose uptake throughout the rest of the day. Research published in Diabetes Care has shown that even brief bouts of morning physical activity meaningfully reduce post-breakfast blood sugar spikes in people with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. The second morning habit is eating protein first at breakfast before carbohydrates. A growing body of research has examined the effect of the order in which different macronutrients are consumed at a meal on post-meal blood sugar. And the finding is remarkably consistent. Eating protein and fat first before carbohydrates at the same meal containing the exact same foods and the exact same amounts significantly reduces the post-meal blood sugar spike compared to eating carbohydrates first. The mechanism involves protein stimulating an early insulin response, slowing gastric emptying, and triggering incretin hormones before the carbohydrate glucose arrives. So, simply changing the order in which you eat your breakfast, eggs or Greek yogurt before toast or cereal, can meaningfully reduce the blood sugar spike of that same breakfast without changing what you eat, only the sequence. The third morning habit is checking your fasting blood sugar. If you have a glucometer or a continuous glucose monitor, your fasting blood sugar, taken before eating or drinking anything except water, first thing in the morning, is one of the most informative single data points about your blood sugar health. A consistently normal fasting blood sugar below 100 milligrams per deciliter suggests your blood sugar regulation is functioning well overnight. A fasting blood sugar consistently between 100 and 125 suggests prediabetes and is a signal that warrants a conversation with your doctor. And a fasting blood sugar consistently above 126 on more than one occasion meets the diagnostic threshold for type 2 diabetes and requires prompt medical evaluation. The fourth morning habit is drinking water before coffee. Mild dehydration, which is common overnight when you have not drunk anything for 7 or 8 hours, causes the blood to become more concentrated, and blood glucose, as a proportion of the total blood volume, rises slightly, even without any food consumption. Drinking a full glass of water as the very first thing you consume in the morning before coffee or tea rehydrates the blood, reduces this concentration effect, and supports kidney function in filtering glucose throughout the day. The fifth morning habit is a moment of deliberate calm before the day begins. This one surprises many people, but the connection between cortisol, stress, and blood sugar is direct, documented, and important. Cortisol is the primary stress hormone, and it raises blood sugar by stimulating the liver to release glucose into the bloodstream. This is called the cortisol glucose response, and it happens every morning as cortisol naturally peaks in what is called the cortisol awakening response. In people with insulin resistance or prediabetes, this natural morning cortisol peak can push fasting blood sugar higher than it would otherwise be. This phenomenon is called the dawn phenomenon, and it is one of the reasons why some people wake up with higher blood sugar than they went to sleep with, even without eating anything. Taking 5 minutes in the quiet of the morning before the demands of the day begin to breathe slowly, to sit calmly, or to do whatever creates a sense of peace for you reduces the cortisol response that is spiking your morning blood sugar before you have even had breakfast. Let me bring everything together now. After 60, blood sugar regulation becomes less precise due to insulin resistance, reduced first phase insulin secretion, and a diminished incretin effect. Cinnamon, specifically Ceylon cinnamon, 1 teaspoon in warm water every morning before breakfast, has been shown in multiple clinical trials and meta-analyses to improve insulin sensitivity, slow gastric emptying, inhibit carbohydrate digesting enzymes, and directly stimulate glucose uptake in ways that measurably support blood sugar regulation after 60. It is not a replacement for medication. It is not a cure for diabetes, but it is a genuine, low-risk, evidence-informed daily habit that, when combined with a morning walk, protein-first eating at breakfast, morning fasting blood sugar monitoring, adequate hydration before coffee, and a moment of morning calm, creates a morning routine that supports blood sugar health in a real and meaningful way every single day. These are not dramatic changes. They do not require expensive equipment. They do not require a prescription. They require a teaspoon of cinnamon, a glass of warm water, and the decision to do something simple and consistent every morning before the day takes over. I am Dr. Daniel Chen. If this video gave you something practical that you can start tomorrow morning, please share it with someone over 60 who is also managing their blood sugar and looking for something real that they can actually do. Subscribe to this channel for weekly videos made with genuine care for older adults who deserve real information about their own health. And leave me a comment below. Tell me what your morning blood sugar number usually looks like, and whether you have ever tried cinnamon for blood sugar support. I read every single comment, and I genuinely look forward to hearing from you. Take care of yourself and take care of your blood sugar starting tomorrow morning.